Have you ever tried distracting yourself from anxious thoughts, only to find that the worry came back even stronger? Or maybe you've wondered if distraction is just avoidance, and whether using it makes your anxiety worse in the long run. Welcome to Quieting Anxiety by Excel at Life. I'm Dr. Monica Frank, and in today's episode, we're going to tackle a common question. Is there ever a time to use distraction? And if so, how can you use it effectively? But first, let's take a moment to settle. Take a slow breath in and let it out gently. Now imagine you're holding a handful of objects. Some are heavy and sharp. These represent the anxious thoughts that weigh you down. Others are light and smooth. These represent calming or neutral thoughts. You don't have to carry all of them at once. In this moment, you can choose to set one of the heavy objects down and pick up a lighter one instead. Notice what it feels like to place one weight aside, even briefly, and shift your attention to something easier to hold. That's the power of distraction when used wisely. You can't stop the heavier objects from existing, but you can choose which ones you focus on. As you breathe in, remind yourself, I notice the weight of my thoughts. And as you breathe out, and I can choose to set one aside for now. In CBT, distraction is often criticized because many people use it as avoidance. If you distract yourself instead of facing your fears, you never learn you can handle them. And avoidance keeps anxiety alive. But here's the truth. Distraction itself isn't the problem. It's how, when, and why you use it. Distraction becomes unhelpful when it prevents you from facing your fears or keeps you stuck in avoidance. For example, if distraction prevents you from addressing a feared situation or thought, it actually reinforces the anxiety. Imagine being invited to a social gathering, but choosing to scroll on your phone all night to escape the discomfort. In the moment, it may feel like relief, but over time, it strengthens the belief that you can't handle the situation. When distraction is relied on exclusively, it keeps you from developing the skills and tools that create long-term change. Finally, distraction can interfere with fully understanding the anxiety and triggers because it prevents focusing attention on these issues. At the same time, distraction can be helpful when it's used with intention and balance. It can serve as a temporary tool in moments when anxiety spikes so high that you risk becoming overwhelmed or re-traumatized. It can also be useful when you've already challenged a thought and know it isn't true, but it keeps replaying in your mind. In those cases, distraction gives your nervous system a sharp break so you can reset and return to the problem later with more strength. It may even help you manage unusual or one-time situations, like getting through a long flight where you need immediate relief rather than long-term change. In this way, distraction acts as a bridge. It doesn't fix the underlying issue, but it can carry you through until you're ready to re-engage with other CBT tools. That's why it's so important to remember that distraction should only ever be a temporary strategy. It can give you relief in the moment, but it is not a long-term solution. The real progress comes from practicing the CBT tools you've been learning throughout this podcast. Skills like cognitive restructuring, mindfulness, exposure, and thought stopping. Those are the strategies that actually change your relationship with anxiety over time. Distraction may help you catch your breath, but it's these other tools that can build lasting resilience. And if you do find yourself relying on distraction at times, that's okay. It doesn't mean you failed. It simply means you needed a moment of relief, and you can always return to your other skills when you're ready. Not all distractions are created equal. Some can actually cause serious harm if they become the primary way of coping with anxiety. For example, behaviors like gambling, drinking, or compulsive shopping may temporarily pull your attention away from anxious thoughts, but they often create new problems that make life more stressful in the long run. These kinds of distractions can turn into destructive patterns that reinforce anxiety rather than reduce it. But distraction doesn't have to be harmful. A better way to use it is to choose activities that not only take your mind off the worry, but also benefit you in other ways. Exercise is a perfect example. It provides immediate relief by shifting your focus away from intrusive thoughts, and at the same time, it promotes long-term health and resilience. Other examples might include creative activities, meaningful hobbies, or connecting with supportive people. When distraction has an added benefit, it becomes more than just a temporary escape. It becomes a healthy way to reset your mind and body. You may have noticed that sometimes distraction is built right into the coping methods you may already practice. For example, relaxation techniques and breathing exercises can work as a form of healthy distraction. When you focus on slowing your breath, noticing your body, or picturing a calming image, you're shifting your attention away from the anxious thought loop and giving your nervous system a chance to reset. In this way, relaxation isn't avoiding anxiety, it's redirecting your focus long enough to bring your body and mind back into balance. Once you've calmed, you can return to the other CBT tools we've been practicing with more clarity and strength. With that in mind, let's talk specifically about exercise as a powerful and constructive form of distraction because it also provides long-term benefits. Research shows exercise can reduce both acute anxiety and chronic anxiety as effectively as medication. In other words, exercise can help calm you down right away, and it can also ease the kind of anxiety that lingers day after day, just as well as medication. But just like medication, people often drop out, sometimes because of side effects, and sometimes simply because exercise can be hard and requires motivation. When exercise is combined with CBT, however, the results are even stronger, with greater reductions in anxiety symptoms over the long term. So, what does this mean for you? Exercise can reduce anxiety both immediately and over time, yet it's not a standalone solution. Cognitive therapy addresses the thinking that drives anxiety and helps with the motivation needed to keep exercise as part of your lifestyle. And it's important not to rely on exercise as your only tool. I've worked with clients who experienced spikes in anxiety when they couldn't exercise because of illness or injury. Having multiple coping strategies is key, so you don't become dependent on just one method. There are many reasons why exercise helps with anxiety. For some people, it works by exposing them to body sensations and gradually decreasing anxiety sensitivity. For others, it produces physiological changes that calm the stress response, or it improves sleep quality. Exercise can also increase feelings of mastery and success, boost mood, reduce social withdrawal, and of course, provide healthy distraction from anxious states. In reality, the mechanism may differ from person to person, and often several of these factors work together. And the benefits aren't limited to running or the gym. Meditative movement practices like yoga, tai chi, or qigong can be just as effective, especially in milder cases. Most research suggests 20 to 30 minutes of exercise several times per week can reduce anxiety, though it may take 10 weeks or more to notice consistent changes. If you're new to exercise, start small and build gradually. And remember, even light or mindful movement can help. So, how can you tell the difference between helpful distraction and distraction that has slipped into avoidance? One simple question to ask yourself is this: am I using this distraction to escape indefinitely? Or am I using it to give myself a break so I can return stronger? Avoidant distraction usually shows up when you replace exposure or problem solving with escape. For example, you might avoid preparing for a presentation by watching television for hours. Or you might avoid dealing with a relationship conflict by burying yourself in endless online scrolling. In those cases, distraction keeps you from facing the real issues and only strengthens your anxiety in the long run. Helpful distraction, on the other hand, is purposeful, temporary, and balanced with other CBT tools. It gives your mind and body a chance to calm down without permanently sidestepping the problem. You might go for a walk, work on a creative project, or talk with a supportive friend. Not to avoid the issue entirely, but to lower your anxiety enough so you can return to it later with more clarity and strength. Distraction isn't meant to replace cognitive restructuring or behavioral methods for anxiety reduction. It's meant to support them. Think of it as one tool in a larger toolbox. For example, you might challenge an irrational thought, but if it keeps looping back, you could use a technique like thought stopping to interrupt it. If your anxiety is still running high after that, you might turn to a healthy distraction, such as exercise or an absorbing activity to help your body settle. The important part is that once you've calmed enough to think clearly again, you return to your CBT work. That way, distraction becomes a bridge to help you manage the intensity of anxiety while you continue building the deeper skills that create long-term change. So the takeaway today is distraction is only one tool. It can give you a break, but it works best when paired with the other CBT strategies you've been practicing, like cognitive restructuring, mindfulness, and behavioral techniques. These are the skills that create lasting change, while distraction simply helps you rest so that you can return to the work with more strength. So reflect on how you use distraction. Is it in a healthy way, or does it prevent you from progressing with managing your anxiety? Your task is to choose which distraction methods you can use and when. Relaxation methods, exercise, visiting with a friend. What might be most beneficial for you? And how will you return to your focus on managing anxiety? You can also use the companion audio, Taking a Pause, Practicing Healthy Distraction, to help you focus on how to use distraction in a beneficial way. As we come to the close of this practice, take another slow breath in and let it go gently. Bring to mind those objects you imagined at the beginning, the heavy ones that represent your anxious thoughts, and the lighter ones that represent calm or neutral thoughts. Notice that the heavy ones may still be there, but you don't have to keep carrying them. With your next breath in, imagine yourself setting down one of those heavier objects, just for now. With your breath out, Picture yourself choosing one of the lighter ones instead, something that feels easier, steadier, or more peaceful to hold. Remind yourself, the heavy thoughts may exist, but I don't have to carry them all. I can set them down and choose where to place my focus. Take one final breath in and out, carrying with you the awareness that you can set thoughts aside temporarily. Choose where to focus and give yourself the space to rest and recover and return to your healing journey whenever you're ready. As you move into your day, remember, distraction can be avoidance, but it can also be choice. The key is to use it wisely, purposefully, temporarily, and alongside your other tools. Until next time, keep practicing, keep breathing, and keep moving forward.